Chapter 2. The Second Commandment. 1. The Lawful Approach to God. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of any thing that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me, and keep my commandments. Exodus 20, verses 4 through 6, compare with Deuteronomy 5, verses 8 through 10. The first commandment prohibits idolatry in the broad sense. There can be none other God than the Lord. These other gods are man-made substitutes for the true God. As Ingram noted, quote, "The other gods about whom we must be concerned are, as they have ever been, to be found in the seats of temporal or human government." End quote. The biblical definition of idolatry is obviously a broad one. Thus, St. Paul declares that no covetous man who is an idolater hath any inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and of God. Ephesians 5:5. Again, in Colossians 3:5, reference is made to covetousness, which is idolatry. Lenski noted, quote, "A Catholic priest states that during his long years of service, all kinds of sins and crimes were confessed to him in the confessional, but never the sin of covetousness." End quote. Thus, in analyzing the second commandment, we must say, first, that the literal use of idols and images in worship is strictly forbidden. Leviticus 26, 1 through 2 makes this very clear. "Ye shall make you no idols nor graven image, neither rear you up a standing image, neither shall ye set up any image of stone in your land, to bow down unto it. For I am the Lord your God. Ye shall keep my Sabbaths and reverence my sanctuary. I am the Lord." Leviticus 19:4 also commands, "Turn ye not unto idols, nor make to yourselves molten gods. I am the Lord your God." See Exodus 34:17. Other legislation reads, "And the Lord said unto Moses, Thus thou shalt say unto the children of Israel, Ye have seen that I have talked with you from heaven. Ye shall not make with me gods of silver, neither shall ye make unto you gods of gold. An altar of earth thou shalt make unto me, and shalt sacrifice thereon thy burnt offerings and thy peace offerings, thy sheep and thine oxen. In all places where I record my name I will come unto thee, and I will bless thee. And if thou wilt make me an altar of stone, thou shalt not build it of hewn stone, for if thou lift up thy tool upon it, thou hast polluted it. Neither shalt thou go up by steps unto mine altar, that thy nakedness be not discovered thereon." Exodus 20, 22 through 26. "Take ye therefore good heed unto yourselves, for ye saw no manner of form on the day that the Lord spake unto you in Horeb out of the midst of the fire, lest ye deal corruptly and make you a graven image, even the form of any figure, the likeness of male or female, the likeness of any beast that is on the earth, the likeness of any winged fowl that flieth into heaven, the likeness of anything that creepeth on the ground, the likeness of any fish that is in the water under the earth. And lest thou lift up thine eyes unto heaven, and when thou seest the sun and the moon and the stars, even all the host of heaven, thou be drawn away and worship them and serve them, which the Lord thy God hath allotted unto all the peoples under the whole heaven. But you hath the Lord taken and brought forth out of the iron furnace, out of Egypt, to be unto him a people of inheritance, as ye are this day. Now the Lord was angered with me for your sakes, and swore that I should not go over the Jordan, and that I should not go in unto that good land which the Lord thy God giveth thee for an inheritance. But I must die in this land. I must not go over the Jordan, but ye are to go over, and possess that good land. Take heed unto yourselves, lest ye forget the covenant of the Lord your God, which he made with you, and make you a graven image, even the likeness of anything which the Lord thy God hath forbidden thee. For the Lord thy God is a devouring fire, a jealous God." Deuteronomy 4:15 through 24, Majority Text Version. "Take heed to yourselves, that your heart be not deceived, and ye turn aside and serve other gods and worship them. And then the Lord's wrath be kindled against you, and he shut up the heaven, and there be no rain, and that the land yield not her fruit, and lest ye perish quickly from off the good land which the Lord giveth you." Deuteronomy 11:16 through 17. Cursed be the man that maketh any graven or molten image, an abomination unto the Lord, the work of the hands of the craftsman, and putteth it in a secret place. And all the people shall answer and say, Amen. Deuteronomy 27:15. This law does not forbid engraving, picturing, or artwork in general. The priest's garment, for example, pictured pomegranates, Exodus 28:33-44, and chapter 39, verse 24. The mercy seat had at either end 2 cherubim of gold, Exodus 25:18-22, and 37, verse 7. And the sanctuary as a whole was richly ornamented. It is not the religious use of such things which is forbidden, for the pomegranates and cherubim had a religious function, but it is the unauthorized use on the one hand, and their use as a mediation or a way to God that is strongly forbidden. They cannot be helps to worship. Man needs no aid to worship other than God's provision. Thus, idolatry is generally banned by the first commandment, whereas the second law word prohibits it more specifically with reference to worship. Man can only approach God on God's terms. There can be no mediation between God and man except that which is ordered by God. The rationale of idolatry is quite logical. As one writer has pointed out with reference to Hindu idols, the purpose of the idols is to convey abstract concepts to the simple mind. The God depicted with many hands symbolizes thereby the omnipotence of the Supreme Being, and the many-eyed God sets forth omniscience, and so on. This is an intelligent and logical thesis, but it is also totally wrong. It is forbidden by God and therefore dishonors Him, and thus receives no blessing. It has also been productive of social decadence and personal depravity. Wherever man begins by establishing his own approach to God, he ends up by establishing his own will, his own lusts, and finally himself as God. If the terms of man's approach to God are set by man, then the terms of man's life and prosperity are dictated also by man rather than by God. But the initiative belongs entirely to God, and therefore the only lawful approach to God is on His terms entirely, and by His grace. This, then, is the second aspect of the second commandment. The lawful approach to God is entirely of God's ordination. Hence, the altar had to be a natural one, not of man's making. Hence, too, the priest could not reveal his nakedness. He was to be entirely covered by raiment, setting forth the office of mediation, God's appointed mediator. Since the order of worship set forth the mediatorial work of Christ, the God-appointed approach to God, there could be no departure from that order without apostasy. A third aspect of this law word is this: even as a very literal idolatry is forbidden, so a very literal blessing and cursing are attached to the law. This is clearly stated in the declaration of the commandment. It appears sharply in Leviticus 26. Verses 1-3 forbid idolatry, order Sabbath-keeping and reverence for the sanctuary, and call as well for walking in the Lord's statutes and commandments generally. In verses 4-46, the very literal material consequences to the nation are fully depicted. A very literal law has very literal and material consequences. Obedience and disobedience have central historical consequences and results. In brief, religion, true religion, is not a matter of voluntary choice which is without repercussions. It is required by God, and failure to meet His requirements leads to His judgment. To assume that men are free to worship or not to worship without radical consequences for society is to negate the very meaning of biblical faith. The life of a society is its religion, and if that religion be false, then the society is headed for death. Remarkable and signal material blessings are promised for obedience, but, "And if ye will not be reformed by me by these things, but will walk contrary unto me, then will I also walk contrary unto you, and will punish you 7 times for your sins." Leviticus 26:23-24. Obedience is thus not a matter of taste, it is a question of life or death. Fourth, social health requires the prohibition of idolatry because its toleration means social suicide. Idolatry is thus not only punishable by law as socially detrimental. It is, in fact, a capital offense. It constitutes treason to the king or sovereign, to Almighty God. If there be found among you within any of thy gates which the Lord thy God giveth thee, man or woman that hath wrought wickedness in the sight of the Lord thy God in transgressing his covenant, and hath gone and served other gods and worshipped them, either the sun or moon or any of the host of heaven which I have not commanded, and it be told thee, and thou hast heard of it, and inquired diligently, and behold, it be true, and the thing certain, that such abomination is wrought in Israel, then shalt thou bring forth that man or that woman which have committed that wicked thing unto thy gates, even that man or that woman, and shalt stone them with stones till they die. At the mouth of 2 witnesses or 3 witnesses shall he that is worthy of death be put to death, but at the mouth of 1 witness he shall not be put to death. The hands of the witnesses shall be first upon him to put him to death, and afterwards the hands of all the people. So thou shalt put the evil away from among you. Deuteronomy 17, 2-7. To the modern mind, treason to the state is logically punishable by death, but not treason to God. But no law order can survive if it does not defend its core faith by rigorous sanctions. The law order of humanism leads only to anarchy. Lacking absolutes, a humanistic law order tolerates everything which denies absolutes while warring against biblical faith. The only law of humanism is ultimately this, that there is no law except self-assertion. It is, do what thou wilt. The result is the arrogant contempt for law manifested in a 1968 broadside issued by the Riverside County, California, Cleaver for President Committee, promoting the candidacy of Eldridge Cleaver, Black Panther, Minister of Information, and Peace and Freedom Party candidate for U.S. President. The statement describes Cleaver in part thus, quote, "Now consider Eldridge Cleaver. His quote-unquote American history can be told quickly. First, he was invisible and irrelevant, a slum kid in Little Rock, a ghetto expendable in Watts. Then he was a local nuisance in 1954 when he was busted for the first time, aged 18, for smoking pot. Then he became a savage menace. That was when he was jailed for the second time, in 1958, for disturbing the beauty sleep of some of suburban Los Angeles's white goddesses. Later, when in his own beautiful way, and against incredible odds he achieved his own distinctive manhood, what was he then? A political prisoner, in a nation that pretends not even to know the meaning of these words." End quote. The terms in which a record of rape is described indicate the utter contempt for biblical law order on the part of the committee. To tolerate an alien law order is a very real subsidy of it. It is a warrant for life to that alien law order, and a sentence of death against the established law order. Sir Patrick Devlin has pointed to the dilemma of the law today. Quote, "I think it is clear that the criminal law as we know it is based upon moral principle. In a number of crimes, its function is simply to enforce a moral principle and nothing else. The law, both criminal and civil, claims to be able to speak about morality and immorality generally. Where does it get its authority to do this, and how does it settle the moral principles which it enforces? Undoubtedly, as a matter of history, it derives both from Christian teaching. But I think that the strict logician is right when he says that the law can no longer rely on doctrines in which citizens are entitled to disbelieve. It is necessary, therefore, to look for some other source." End quote. The legal crisis is due to the fact that the law of Western civilization has been Christian law, but its faith is increasingly humanism. The old law is therefore neither understood, nor obeyed, nor enforced. But the new quote-unquote law simply makes every man his own law, and increasingly leads to anarchy and totalitarianism. The law, says Devlin, cannot function, quote, in matters of morality about which the community as a whole is not deeply imbued with a sense of sin. The law sags under a weight which it is not constructed to bear, and may become permanently warped. End quote. Moreover, quote, "A man who concedes that morality is necessary to society must support the use of those instruments without which morality cannot be maintained. The two instruments are those of teaching, which is doctrine, and of enforcement, which is the law. If morals could be taught simply on the basis that they are necessary to society, there would be no social need for religion. It could be left as a purely personal affair. But morality cannot be taught in that way. Loyalty is not taught in that way either. No society has yet solved the problem of how to teach morality without religion. So the law must base itself on Christian morals and, to the limit of its ability, enforce them, not simply because they are the morals of most of us, nor simply because they are the morals which are taught by the established church. On these points, the law recognizes the right to dissent, but for the compelling reason that without the help of Christian teaching, the law will fail." End quote. In short, the laws of a society cannot raise a people above the level of the faith and morality of the people and of the society. A people cannot legislate itself above its level. If it holds to Christian faith in truth and in deed, it can establish and maintain godly law and order. If its faith be humanistic, the people will be traitors to any law order which does not condone their self-assertion and their irresponsibility. The question, thus, is a basic one. What constitutes treason in a culture? Idolatry, that is, treason to God, or treason to the state? What is the fundamental principle of order, the necessary ground of man's existence and salvation, God or the state? Treason to the state is a concept which can be used to destroy the godly, and it is so done in Marxist countries. Treason can be defined as the U.S. Constitution in Article 3, Section 3 defined it, very narrowly and cautiously. But what if the enemy of the citizen turns out to be the state turned traitor to its own constitution? For the Christian, it is idolatry which above all else constitutes treason to the social order. Fifth, we have seen that, while idolatry is narrowly defined, it is also broadly defined, that is, as covetousness. But idolatry involves any and every attempt by man to be guided by his own word rather than God's law word. This is often devoutly and piously done. Many parents are sinfully patient or indulgent with their lawless children, or husbands with wives and wives with husbands, in the fond hope that God will miraculously change the wayward one. "I am in continual prayer," they will assert, adding that all things are possible with God. But this is a fearful arrogance and sin. Indeed, all things are possible with God. But we cannot live in terms of what God might do, but only in terms of what His law word requires. To wait on conversion or move in hope is a sinful substitute, however much piously disguised, for obedience to God and the acceptance of reality under God. Such a course is to make our hope the law word, and God's law word of none effect. Samuel made this clear to Saul, declaring, "For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry." 1 Samuel 15:23. We are not permitted to call our stubbornness and rebellion anything other than sin. The only lawful approach to God is thus the way He provides, and that way is summed up in the person of Jesus Christ. Any other way is idolatry, even when presented in the name of the Lord.